This was supposed to be my year. I screwed it up. Next year's mine. Chapter 1. The best position of my life. This was supposed to be my year. Not in the hopeful, motivational sense people say every January. I don't mean affirmations or vision boards. I mean on paper, in reality, in black and white numbers, I was in the strongest position of my entire life. For the first time ever, my credit scores were in the 800s. Not flirting with it. Solid, locked, earned. I had hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash saved, hundreds of thousands more in available business credit, zero desperation, zero financial panic. For once, I wasn't playing catch-up. I had leverage. It took years to get there. Discipline, restraint, sacrifice. Decisions most people never see, because they only show up after the work is done. I didn't stumble into that position. I built it deliberately. I also had something else I hadn't had in a long time. Hope. Real hope. The kind that comes when you finally feel aligned with where your life is going instead of constantly correcting it. I was in love. Or at least, I believed I was building towards something real with someone who mattered to me. A relationship that had been wild, chaotic, intoxicating, and dangerous, but also meaningful in a way that made me willing to risk everything to see if it could finally stabilize. And that's the part people don't understand until they've lived it. When you've built a life around freedom, real freedom, you don't make decisions lightly. You don't uproot yourself on impulse. You don't burn bridges unless you believe there's something worth walking toward on the other side. I believed there was. I had unfinished business. With myself. With my future. With a life that had become too comfortable and not challenging enough. I had spent years avoiding certain paths out of loyalty, avoidance of conflict, and fear of disrupting family dynamics. But deep down, I knew I wasn't operating in the natural order of things. I was surviving well, but not building at my true capacity. This year was supposed to change that. I wasn't trying to reinvent myself. I was trying to return to what I knew I was built for. But this time, with more wisdom, more capital, and more control than ever before. On paper, it was flawless. And that's what makes what happened next so brutal. Wait, you listening? Do this now to lock in your success. If you take this easy action right now, studies show your chances of success increase by 8,000% by sending the message to your subconscious mind. Hit the subscribe button. Now, it's free and simple and will increase your chances of success by 8,000%. So let's go. Use your first cheat code. Chapter 2. The dream life that started to rot. Puerto Rico was a dream, until it wasn't. For years, I lived a life most people fantasize about. Freedom, warm weather, no rigid schedule, the ability to wake up and decide where I wanted to be, who I wanted to see, what I wanted to do, a gypsy lifestyle that felt intoxicating because it removed all the usual constraints. But there's a quiet danger in comfort, not the obvious kind, the subtle kind, the kind that whispers, "You've earned this," while slowly draining your edge. The kind that replaces growth with indulgence and momentum with routine disguised as freedom. I felt it long before I admitted it. The dream life started to rot from the inside. Not because it was bad, but because it stopped asking anything of me. It stopped demanding discipline. It stopped forcing decisions. It allowed me to drift just enough to delay confronting what I already knew. I wasn't where I was supposed to be long term. Puerto Rico wasn't the destination. It was a chapter. And I had overstayed it. The relationship amplified that realization. When you're with someone volatile, intoxicating, and unpredictable, you either evolve together or you stagnate together. And stagnation always carries a cost. I knew that if I didn't change something dramatically, I would wake up years later realizing I traded my future for comfort. So I made the hardest kind of decision. Not because it was easy, not because it was safe, but because it was necessary. I decided to start over, properly, with or without her. Chapter 3. The woman, the fairy tale, the warning signs. The relationship was never normal. It was intense from the beginning, magnetic, addictive, the kind of connection that feels cosmic when you're inside it and catastrophic when you step back and examine it objectively. For 3 years, it was a fairy tale mixed with a horror story. Passion, chaos, love, destruction, all braided together. Every high came with a crash. Every promise came with volatility. Every moment of closeness came with instability lurking underneath. But here's the part most people won't admit. I didn't stay because I was weak. I stayed because I believed there was something worth saving. And because part of me needed to see it through to the end, one way or another. This year was the fork in the road. Either we stabilized and built something real together, or we ended it forever. There was no third option. And that's why I made the decisions I made. Not blindly, not naively, but with a calculated understanding that regardless of how it played out, I would win. If it worked with her, I'd be starting a new chapter in the strongest position of my life. Financially, structurally, strategically. If it didn't work, I would still be free, capitalized and positioned to rebuild without her. Or so I thought. What I underestimated wasn't her instability. It was the depth of destruction she was willing to unleash when she didn't get her way. Chapter 4. Burning the boats on purpose. Starting over in Colorado wasn't impulsive. It was surgical. I bought myself out of contracts in Puerto Rico, contracts that represented a dream life most people would never walk away from. I made people angry. Family members questioned my sanity. Friends didn't understand why I would dismantle something so comfortable for something so uncertain. But comfort was the enemy. Colorado represented focus, structure, growth. A place where I could finally align my personal life, business ambitions, and long-term vision without distraction. I bought a new dream house. Not because I needed it, but because I knew it would support what I was building. A house I would have loved regardless, but one I chose with us in mind. Because if she had joined me, it would have been the best home she ever lived in. I didn't half-step this restart. I started 2 businesses simultaneously. One was for me, fully mine, built for income, leverage, and control. The other was meant to be shared, something I planned to run with her, a way to give her purpose, structure, and stability alongside me. I built systems, not fantasies. I negotiated airport contracts. I placed the house intentionally near the airport. I assembled a fleet of vehicles, 12 cars, knowing exactly how the revenue streams would interlock. Rental cars, short-term housing for pilots and flight attendants, transportation access, symbiosis. It was the most upfront capital I'd ever deployed. Over $200,000 in cash, another $80,000 in strategic credit, $100,000 in living expenses. Not reckless spending, calculated execution. Everything was aligned. Everything was ready. And that's when the real nightmare began. Chapter 5. The house, the fleet, and the system I built. Everything I built in Colorado was intentional. This wasn't a fantasy. It was architecture. The house wasn't just a place to live. It was a hub. Close to the airport on purpose. Positioned to serve 2 businesses at once. Every square foot had a function. Every decision had a reason. I negotiated access most people don't even know exists. Airport infrastructure, transportation flow, the same systems used to move passengers, luggage, and rental cars, leveraged for my own fleet. I wasn't guessing. I wasn't experimenting. I knew how this worked. 12 vehicles, not toys, assets. A Turo rental fleet designed to hit the ground running. Demand already there. Location already optimized. Systems already in place. Then the second layer. Short-term leasing for flight attendants and pilots. Rooms in the house positioned for rotating schedules. A built-in customer base that needed exactly what I had. Proximity, reliability, convenience. They could rent a room. They could rent a car. Everything integrated. The house would pay for itself. The cars would generate profit. The businesses would feed each other. This was the most sophisticated build I'd ever done. Over $200,000 of my own cash went into it. Another $80,000 in credit so I didn't burn through liquidity. This wasn't desperation spending. This was strategic deployment. I was calm, focused, clear. What I didn't factor in, what I couldn't have factored in, was how much emotional warfare could sabotage even the most perfectly built system. Chapter 6. Valentine's Day and the first real threat. By February, the pressure started creeping in. I had no income yet. By design. New businesses take time. I knew that. I planned for it. This was the bridge period where focus mattered more than anything. That's when she wanted Miami. Valentine's Day. She wanted me to meet her there, like nothing had changed. Like this was just another chapter in our gypsy lifestyle. Another spontaneous escape. Another distraction disguised as romance. But the fun was supposed to be over. It was time to work. Time to build. Time to stabilize. I didn't go. And that's when everything shifted. She didn't argue. She didn't negotiate. She exploded. What followed wasn't disappointment. It was a threat. If I didn't come, she said she would ruin my life, end me, destroy everything. At the time, I didn't fully register the weight of those words. I thought it was emotional manipulation, a tantrum, a bluff. I'd seen plenty of those before. I underestimated how far a narcissist will go when they realize they're losing control. I also had a feeling, a deep, visceral one, that something was wrong. I believed she was planning to set me up in Miami, planning something that could destroy me legally, financially, or worse. The recklessness in her behavior had crossed into something darker. I was frustrated, angry, disappointed. Not just because of her, but because I needed space to build my future and she was actively trying to sabotage it, sabotage herself, sabotage me. I chose to move forward. That decision cost me everything. Chapter 7. When destruction becomes the goal. Once a narcissist decides you're no longer useful, the goal changes. It's no longer about love. It's no longer about connection. It's about annihilation. What followed was relentless. Emotional attacks, lies, manipulation, pressure from every angle. She wasn't trying to win. She was trying to burn everything down. And here's the truth most people don't understand until they experience it. Some people are willing to destroy their own life, reputation, and future if it means destroying yours too. There is no logic in that mindset. No negotiation, no reasoning. By May, I was exhausted in a way I'd never experienced before. Not physically, mentally. Every day required defense. Every interaction required vigilance. Every moment of silence felt like the calm before another hit. The businesses suffered, not because they were flawed, but because I was under siege. Focus was impossible. Energy was drained before it could be deployed productively. I was being attacked from the inside out, and I still underestimated the damage. I thought if I just endured a little longer, if I just pushed through, if I just stayed disciplined, it would stabilize. That was a mistake. Chapter 8. Alone in the house I built for us. The house became a prison, not because it was empty, but because of what it represented. Every room was chosen with us in mind. Every detail reflected a future that now felt poisoned. I wasn't just alone. I was surrounded by the ghost of a life that was supposed to begin there. I had spent years living freely, traveling, moving when I wanted, changing scenery when I needed to reset. Now I was stuck. Stuck in a house I didn't want to be alone in. Stuck in businesses I didn't want to run solo. Stuck in a city that felt heavy without the vision it was built for. The emotional weight was crushing. I started questioning everything. Why did I commit to being back in Colorado full time? Why did I anchor myself when I wasn't ready to be anchored alone? Why did I believe this would be easier than it was? The answer didn't matter anymore. The reality was undeniable. I was overwhelmed, distracted, emotionally depleted, and it was bleeding into every area of my life. That's when my brother said something that cut through everything. Get rid of it all. Take the losses. Come back to Puerto Rico. Regroup. It made sense instantly. Yes, it meant losses. Financial, emotional, ego-driven. But it also meant survival. Reset. Distance from danger. And deep down, I knew something even more important. If this didn't happen exactly like this, I would have taken her back. I would have stayed trapped in a volatile, dangerous dynamic where my freedom, finances, and future were constantly at risk. I needed it to collapse this hard. I even prayed for it. Be careful what you ask for. Chapter 9. The losses that almost broke me. The losses weren't just numbers. That's the part people who've never built anything real don't understand. Money is measurable, but what it represents isn't. Every dollar I watched evaporate carried time, discipline, restraint, and opportunity cost with it. I didn't just lose money, I lost positioning. That was the hardest part. I had done everything right. I had set myself up better than ever before. I was debt-free, capitalized, leveraged intelligently, ready to execute. And now I was watching it collapse in slow motion, knowing exactly how good the situation had been and how rare it was to ever be in that position. The mental torment was relentless. What if I had waited? What if I had ended it sooner? What if I had known then what I know now? Those questions looped endlessly. Not because they helped, but because the mind tries to make sense of pain by replaying it. There were moments where the regret was heavier than the loss itself. Moments where I felt physically sick thinking about how close I was to one of the best years of my life and how far it had fallen. But here's the truth that eventually cut through the noise. The collapse wasn't random. I didn't lose everything because I was reckless. I lost it because I underestimated the destructive capacity of someone who had nothing to lose, and because I ignored the warning signs that told me the situation was becoming dangerous. That realization hurt, but it was also clarifying. Responsibility doesn't mean blame, it means ownership. And once I owned it, something shifted. Chapter 10. Burning it down again to save myself. Going back to Puerto Rico wasn't defeat. It was extraction. I needed distance. I needed space. I needed my nervous system to stop living in a state of constant alert. I needed to step away before the damage became irreversible. So I let it go. The house. The businesses. The vision as it was originally designed. Yes, it meant losses. Yes, it meant explaining myself again. Yes, it meant swallowing my pride and accepting that the plan I had invested so much into wasn't going to survive. But it also meant survival. If I had stayed, I would have kept bleeding. Financially, emotionally, mentally. And worse, I would have stayed psychologically tethered to someone who thrived on chaos and control. The irony is this. Had it not collapsed exactly the way it did, I would have gone back to her. I would have convinced myself things could be different. I would have minimized the danger. I would have kept bargaining with reality. Chapter 11. The awakening and the return to the natural order. Once the noise stopped, something else returned. Clarity. For the first time in years, I wasn't distracted by chaos. I wasn't reacting to emotional sabotage. I wasn't managing damage control. I was alone with myself, and forced to confront a truth I had been avoiding for over a decade. I had stepped away from the mortgage business for the wrong reasons. Not because it wasn't right for me. Not because I didn't love it. But because I didn't want to compete with my brother. That choice came from loyalty. But it also came from self-suppression. Over the years, the mortgage business kept calling me back. Not just because of the income potential, but because it aligned with how I'm built. Strategic, performance-driven, relationship-based, and scalable. And now, everything had changed. Remote work was normalized. Technology had removed geographic limitations. I could build my own operation, on my own terms, anywhere I wanted. I finally allowed myself to step back into my lane. I studied, passed the mortgage exam in 1 to 2 months, then waited 4 to 5 months for the state to finalize the license. At the time, the delay was frustrating. In hindsight, it was another blessing. Had the license come sooner, I would have committed to a scenario that wasn't right. The timing forced patience, alignment, preparation. By October, it was official, and everything clicked. This wasn't reinvention. It was restoration. The natural order reasserted itself. If you want to succeed at 8,000% higher percentage than not hit the subscribe button and lock in, by doing this, you're subconsciously telling your mind that ready or not, you're compting to this and taking action. Hit the subscribe button now. Let's go. Chapter 12. Next year is mine, non-negotiable. This year broke me, but it didn't beat me. Despite everything, I rebuilt in ways that matter. I reestablished my online presence, reclaimed my Google profile, rebuilt my personal brand, restored over 10 websites, launched new platforms, revived coaching, marketing, consulting, and AI-driven systems. I didn't just survive, I positioned. Even in one of the worst years of my life, emotionally, financially, and mentally, I accomplished things most people never do in their best years. That's how I know next year is different. Not because I'm hopeful, because I'm aligned. I'm back in an industry I know deeply, an industry with unlimited upside, an industry that allows remote freedom, massive income potential, tax advantages, and scalability. I can live in Colorado, Puerto Rico, anywhere. I can build without chaos. I can earn without compromise. I didn't reclaim my throne. It was never taken from me. I simply stepped back into it. This collapse snapped me out of a funk that had lasted over 10 years. It forced me to confront the consequences of avoidance, comfort, and misplaced loyalty. It stripped away distractions and left me with what actually matters. The pain was unbearable at times, but it was necessary because it brought my monster back online. Not rage, not recklessness, but decisive clarity. I no longer negotiate with reality. I no longer delay alignment. I no longer build my future around anyone else's instability. This year was supposed to be my year. I screwed it up, and that's exactly why next year is mine. Non-negotiable. If you want to succeed at 8,000% higher percentage than not, hit the subscribe button and lock in. By doing this, you're subconsciously telling your mind that ready or not, you're committing to this and taking action. Hit the subscribe button now. Let's go.